Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here. Welcome back to Tesla Daily. Today we're going to be catching up on the news over the last couple of days. Luckily, it has been relatively quiet. I've seen a lot of discussion relating to a potential stock split. A lot of numerology going on while I've been traveling the last couple of days. We'll also get it caught up on the Elon Musk stock sale. We've got plenty of news on Tesla Energy, both on the Powerwall and Megapack side. A new street high price target for Tesla, updates on Giga Berlin, the budget, a bunch of other stuff. Let's get into it. We'll start off with the stock, which has had a couple of pretty good days here, finishing up 3.7% today to close out the week at $1,137.06. The Nasdaq today finished up 0.4%. And then for the week overall, Tesla actually finishing up 10%. So since the now infamous stock sale Twitter survey, Tesla stock is only down 7% since then. Reminder, next week, the Nasdaq will be closed on Thursday in observance of Thanksgiving, and then it'll close early on Friday as well. All right, let's quickly get current on Elon Musk's stock sale. This could definitely change if there are more Form 4s coming out tonight. Oftentimes that does happen as I'm publishing, so this may change, but current as of market close today, Elon so far has sold a little bit more than 8.2 million shares, and the last couple of batches have been from option exercise tax covering sales. So we already talked about the Monday one, but we now have one from Tuesday as well, very similar. But now for the last few days, we haven't had a Form 4, so again, that could change tonight, but there may have been a couple of days here that actually had no selling. If there wasn't any more selling, this week could potentially end up with just about 1.8 million shares sold versus a little over 6 million last week from Elon. At any rate, with those 8.2 million shares sold so far, depending on if Elon views 10% as more like 17 million or more like 25 million shares, he would be as much as 48% of the way through selling and as little as potentially 33%. As for the options that need to be exercised before next August from that 2012 performance award, still 16.5 million shares remaining there. So basically 8 lots of the sizes that Elon has been doing. That means about 75% of that still remaining. Moving on from that, then I do just want to briefly touch on the stock split speculation. We're not going to spend the time to go through the reasons behind that speculation, but the gist of it is there's a contingent of people that believe Elon is dropping hints that there may be a stock split announced on December 9th. Elon has been known to be a bit cryptic on Twitter in the past, and a lot of people believe that was the case for the last stock split, because Elon had tweeted Tesla stock price too high in my opinion on May 1st, so that'd be written as 5-1 here in the US, and that was tweeted at 8:11 a.m. Pacific time. And the stock split, which was a 5-4-1, was announced on August 11th, which would be written as 8:11. Given that the tweet said the stock price was too high and a stock split would lower the stock price, I think there is a reasonable case to be made for connection on that one. So ever since then, people have been looking for other clues, and that has led us into the situation that we're in now, with people thinking that there have been clues dropped for December 9th. And there's a decently reasonable case, I think, but the problem with this is that if you look closely at these things, you're going to find something, right? You're going to find these miscellaneous connections that then you can stack up and, oh, it all seems to be connected all of a sudden. Of course, if December 9th goes by and nothing happens, people will forget all about it, as has already been the case a couple of times this year. There have already been discussions exactly like this on multiple occasions throughout this year. I think this one has received the most attention and seems to have the strongest connections, but again, who knows? And at the end of the day, unless you're short-term trading, does it really matter? Not at all. I do think a stock split will help the stock, and we talked a lot about that during the last stock split, but it doesn't actually change any of the fundamentals. So moving on from that, then just kind of the last thing to wrap up with the stock talk is a new street high, tied for street high price target at least, from Dan Ives of Wedbush Securities. So Ives has upped his price target to $1,400 per share. That's up from $1,100 previously. A lot of places are saying $1,000, but they did have a small increase after the Q3 earnings. Anyway, that $1,400 price target does match a street high from Jefferies, and as usual, Ives has a bull case. That actually remains at $1,800 per share. He says, quote, "If China EV penetration accelerates in 2022, the bull case of $1,800 takes hold," end quote. I didn't see a whole lot of other details on this increase. If you've heard from Ives before, you've heard him talk about the green tidal wave, so I think most of the quotes that I've seen have been along those lines. But I'm sure that price target increase didn't hurt Tesla stock today. All right, next up, we've got a couple of stories on Tesla Energy. First up, from Tesla's solar Twitter account, they tweeted that they have now crossed 250,000 Powerwall installations. This is actually our third data point on Powerwall installations, the last of which was back in May when Tesla had tweeted about crossing 200,000 installations. So it was 176 days between those two updates. That means 284 Powerwalls per day. That's about 25 weeks, so 2,000 per week. It does seem like that rate has increased a little bit despite some shortages that Elon and Tesla have talked about, because that first data point that I mentioned, that was actually back in the Q1 earnings report last year. Tesla had announced that they had crossed 100,000 Powerwall installs during that quarter. So basically 100,000 in 15 months. That would have been about 1,500 per week, and probably a little bit higher than that if you account for downtime just from pandemic-related shutdowns. So probably closer to 1,700 or 1,800 per week. But you also have some constraints in the current period that we're looking at that was at 2,000 per week as well. So probably not a huge uptick, but at least good to see that moving up. Next, we've got some news on another Megapack project. Earlier this week, Harmony Energy and Tag Energy announced 2 Tesla Megapack projects, both for right around 100 megawatt hours apiece, one in Scotland, one in England, and those will both commence in Q1 of 2022, commissioning in Q1 2023. So both solid projects, but what's also kind of interesting about this is that Harmony Energy actually just recently did an IPO to raise funds for more battery storage rollout. They raised around 186 million pounds, and these 2 projects are only supposed to cost 60 million pounds. And again, in combination are about 200 megawatt hours, but it looks like they expect to have in total 427 megawatt hours using Tesla's battery storage technology, at least from a report here from energystorage.news. So I'm not clear exactly if the balance is from previously announced projects or if those would be finalized in terms of location and specifics at a later point. But either way, Harmony Energy actually doing even bigger things with Megapack. All right, next up, just kind of a quick status check on Giga Berlin as we are now getting close to the end of the public commentary period. Remember that will end on Monday. Unfortunately, we don't know how long that's going to take to review, but Berlin has been operating with some temporary permits that has allowed them to, I believe, produce a lot of test items and maybe even test vehicles, if I remember that correctly. And we may have seen some of those test vehicles driving around here from a video from Tobias Lind doing a drone flyover. So in his drone video, around the 6-minute timestamp, you can see 3 Model Ys kind of drive out of Giga Berlin. Then a couple minutes later, around 8 minutes, you can see them kind of doing what seems to be a little bit of a test loop there in a parking lot area. It's kind of hard to see in the bottom right of the frame, but they do drive back and forth a few times, which would seem a little bit strange to do if these were just normal Model Ys that were imported. So maybe some test production here that we're seeing. Not sure it is ultimately all that material because, as we heard from the reports at GigaFest, Tesla is pretty much ready to go, just waiting on that approval. Even with that public commentary period ending, I still wouldn't really count on hearing much about that next week. Probably still will take a bit of time. Next, we've got an update on the $1.7 trillion budget reconciliation. Remember, this does house the EV tax credit. So this did complete the Congressional Budget Office review, and the House did vote and pass that today. Haven't really seen any reports on changes there, so I think the EV tax credit is still in the same form that we had last discussed it to be, but this now moves into the Senate, which is going to be a tougher battle for it. Obviously, Senator Manchin has been vocal against the union portion of the EV tax credit, and he'll be one of the swing votes. So there's going to likely be some changes here, and that may very well be one of them. So we are now moving into the final stages, but still going to be at least a couple of weeks before this is fully hashed out. The other political update from the last couple of days that I'm sure many of you have heard by now was that President Biden did speak at a GM factory opening event. And while yes, it is a GM event, here is a comment that was made.
And what we can do when we're together as the United States of America. And it starts here in Detroit. In the auto industry, Detroit's leading the world in electric vehicles. You know how critical it is? Mary, I can remember talking to you way back in January about the need for America to lead in electric vehicles. And I can remember your dramatic announcement that by 2035, GM would be 100% electric. You changed the whole story, Mary, wherever you are. There you are. You did, Mary. You electrified the entire automobile industry. I'm serious. You led, and it matters.
All right, so, I mean, plenty has been said on this topic already. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. I think you guys all know how I feel about this. It's just sad. I mean, there is a company in the US that is leading on EVs, and it's most definitely not GM. And yeah, GM event, but I'm sure we all know that President Biden is somehow not going to be at the Gigafactory Texas opening. It's one thing to ignore Tesla, but to basically take Tesla's credit, give it to someone else that has not delivered what Tesla has actually been able to deliver, that's something else entirely. And this is not ignorance. This is a extremely purposeful strategy, a strategy that's not aligned with the future. And that is unfortunate for us as a nation. Thankfully, the policies don't seem to be taking as strong of a stance actively against Tesla, but comments like this are just outlandish to such a degree that it's embarrassing for the country, and regardless of policy, I do think they're still very harmful comments and extremely disappointing. We've got two of the best companies in the entire world moving humanity forward and our nation forward. We should not be chastising them, we should be championing them. All right, let's move on. We've got an update on the Tesla design studio in China for the Model 3. Tesla's made a couple of changes here. This is for the rear-wheel drive version, so this is formerly known as the standard range. The 0 to 60 has dropped from 5.6 seconds down to 6.1 seconds, so kind of a similar drop to what we had seen in the Model Y recently. The range also was updated from 458 kilometers on the NEDC test cycle to 556 kilometers on the CLTC test cycle. Unfortunately, I'm not sure on the conversion ratio between those, but from the limited information that I have seen on this, it looks like the CLTC test cycle is actually somehow even a little bit more forgiving than the NEDC test cycle, which is already too forgiving to real-world conditions in most cases. So tough to know what the significance of that range change is, but then the other thing here is that they have increased the price by about 15,000 RMB, so about $2,300 US. All right, next we've got a couple of updates on lawsuits. The first is on a racial discrimination lawsuit that we talked about back in early October. So this was the $137 million settlement awarded by a jury. Tesla obviously had plans to appeal that. And this week there was a new court filing by Tesla reported on by Bloomberg that Tesla is arguing for a much lower award in this case. So no surprise on that, the $137 million award, that was a highly unprecedented level. And Tesla already reporting that Tesla's arguing that they should pay closer to $600,000. I don't actually see the filing anywhere, so I can't verify that. But the main point is that obviously the case is still ongoing and that $137 million payment would not be finalized yet. Tesla is also facing another lawsuit covered today by Bloomberg. This is from a female employee who believes that there was rampant sexual harassment, which of course is a horrible thing for anyone to have to deal with, and no one wants to see that. But things like this unfortunately are going to happen with a 100,000 employee company. It's important for Tesla to work as hard as they can to minimize occasions like that and to respond accordingly when necessary. We don't really have any details from this case that I'm seeing yet, so withhold judgment, but Bloomberg does say that, quote, when she complained to supervisors and human resources, they failed to take action, end quote. Obviously, that would be problematic if so, but we'll also have to wait for Tesla's side of the story. All right, last couple of items here. First up, just an update on the Tesla app. So the mobile app, Tesla is adding the ability to customize the quick controls. So today that's where you would find lock, climate, charging, and trunk for some reason. I think I'll be swapping that one out. I always thought trunk would have made more sense there, but now people will be able to make that call for themselves. Quick update on Volkswagen. It looks like they are having to temporarily halt for a week some production of their ID electric vehicle series. Automobile Woche reporting on this and saying that it could cause up to 5,000 vehicles not to be produced, and this is reportedly due to chip shortages. Last thing then, Elon Musk did have a short little presentation on Starship a couple of days ago or a day ago, and just a couple of items from that I thought worth passing along. He said that SpaceX is hoping for their first orbital flight of Starship in January, and they're hoping for 12 Starship launches next year. Before we wrap it up then, just a quick reminder to keep your eyes out this weekend. I do plan on publishing a weekend episode. That'll be an interview with Alex Potter. It's been a while since we've talked to him, so excited to get that conversation out. And then this weekend, we may also see the drop of FSD Beta 10.5. Elon saying that that was on track earlier today. Then as we head into next week, again, that public commentary period for Berlin does end on Monday. And then on Thursday, the market will be closed for Thanksgiving, and then early on Friday. So that is where we'll leave it for today then. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can also find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast. And we'll see you this weekend for the next episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.